Hey, thank you. Good evening. Good evening. Hello, great people. I hope you're doing well. You're blessed. It's amazing. It's amazing to see you people. Bethwa, Johnny, Maureen Favored, Jesse, I can see Monica. Thank you guys for coming in. Tag your friends. Jesse, how are you? Good to see you. It's true. Jesse, you need a treat. So let me know when you're ready. I'll take you for some coffee, for some pizza. You're amazing. Yes, Jesse from United States of America. Oh, Muranga. Oh. Sorry, I'm prophesying. Walter, my friend, how are you, Muhandi? Good to see you. Thank you. Bring Kina Kuria, Kina Douglas. Those are university, my colleagues back there. It's good to see you. Ndio ile mtambo nipeleke wale watu tulikuwa tunasoma nao. Muhandi is here. Thank you. It's amazing seeing you guys. Tell me how the video is. Tell me how the sound is so that we can go into our topic for tonight. So I'm waiting to hear your comments about the sound, about the video. And keep tagging. Great. Thank you. So mseseme sound iko sawa, mseseme video iko sawa. Yes. Wow. This is encouraging. This is amazing. Okay. Watu wangu niambieni sound iko aje. Niambieni video iko aje. Drop a comment there. Yes. How is sound? How is video? How is sound? How is video? Great. This is an amazing evening. Hakuna mtu anataka kutuambia sound iko aje? Hakuna mtu anataka kutuambia video iko aje? Monica, Beth, Maureen, where are those guys? The silence, should we call them silence viewers? What are they saying? Good. Oh, they're saying it's okay? Fine. Thank you. I want to welcome you to our topics today as we discuss, as we share. And I thank God because of what God is doing in our life, all of us, and the testimony that I'm getting. It's amazing, and I thank God because of what He's doing through this show. So let's keep sharing. Let's keep tagging our friends. This is what they need. Remember, we said that our role is that we are not looking for followers. We are looking at people we can build one another. We are not looking to trend, but we're looking to make an impact. So that is our desire. That's our push at the Well Show. And that's what we desire, that God is going to use us, and He's going to bring forth forth that well, a water of life from our lives, and people will watch and be able to say, these guys, they have been molded, they have been built, and the only thing we can give is life. So I'm excited every time I come here, every Thursday. I feel excited, I feel honored that you guys spare time so that you can be able to grow together. And that is great. Last week, catch up, we were looking at how we can be able to heal from the wounds that we have gone through in life. And we really discussed, and I love a number of guys that sent me a text telling, hey, Sam, umetuguza. And today I want to go deeper and deeper in this show. And I hope we'll be able to have enough time to engage one another. And I want to discuss about how we can be able to break the cycles we find ourselves in. The cycles that you find in. And when you talk about cycles, it's like certain patterns you can be able to see in your life. There's a certain pattern you can be able to see. There's a certain way that things look like they're operating. It's like there is a certain order. There is a certain way you can be able to view things happening in your life. And that's what we want to deal with, because we said, as we are looking forward to building this show to different angles and to different ways of doing it, but we have first get the principles right. And tonight we want to talk about how can we be able to break those cycles that we find ourselves in, whether they are family, whether they are financial, whether they're educational. How can we be able to break those cycles? And I know tonight we'll also have a moment to ask ourselves, do you find like there is a certain pattern in your family that you need to break or you need to overcome, or a certain limitation in your family that you need to overcome? And that's what we'll be looking into. And I've started by saying that if you want to realize that there is a certain cycle in your family or certain cycle in your life, is looking at certain kind of a pattern that repeats itself. There is a kind of a repetition that happens. There is a kind of a way that things are done. And you find like this is a cycle that we are in. From the first generation in your family, you can be able to see the same pattern. In the second generation, you can see the same pattern is there. Probably you're the third generation, you can see there is that kind of a pattern. And the same way you can see, probably even if there is your fourth generation, you can be able to pick a number of your family extended members and see. You can be able, there evidence of a certain pattern that has run through. And that is a cycle we want to break. That is a cycle tonight we want to deal with. Whether it's a spirit, people, we will call it a spirit. Whether we'll call it as, limitations. We have to break forth and be able to break from those cycles. Vicious cycles, poverty cycles, and that's what we are going to look at. And I want to mention about four cycles that probably you can be able to see them in your family. And cycle number one, and please underline these, there is what we call educational cycle. You find from your guka, from your father, from yourself, from your siblings, there is a certain level in education ladder that you don't go beyond. You can be able to call your cousins and your nephews and everybody and sit down, and you'll find like the farthest we can go is class 5. Ule msameenda sana is form 4. Like people, your family and education, they don't meet. It's like water and paraffin. You'll be able to see that cycle in your family. Like no one goes beyond a certain level in education. No one. If there is one who tried to go, probably they are always either the opportunity, but something comes in and is like they cannot be able to progress. That is the educational cycle. It's like there's somewhere that you cannot go beyond. Muna rotating two place moja, it is tethering. You keep rotating in one area. There's this pattern you can be able to see. You can call your auntie's kids, those are your cousin, and have a discussion with them, and they'll give you the same story. You go to your uncle's family and you listen the same story. You go to your own family and you'll hear the same story. Like, do you know what? There is a certain limit that you don't break. And that is one of the cycles that tonight we'll be able to see. How can we deal with these cycles? And I've said number one. And do you see why? The moment you cannot break forth in education, that means your family will find dealing with a lot of literacy. It's like, hakuna mtu anaweza shika mwingine mkono. Their families they only have one guy who is in town, in Nairobi, because that education what brings it brings in a family enlightenment. So you find that family, there is a certain way of thinking, there is a certain way of doing things. You can go to a family, and because education also bring exposure, because of lack of this exposure, you'll find a family wanakanga tu place moja, and no one who try to think outside the box. There's a certain way they think, there's a certain way they do their things, there's a certain way of doing, their things as a family. So you find that family, there is no oof, there is no wow, because what happened is when you cannot break certain limits of education, that means exposure is limited, capacity of intelligence and handling and also thinking capacity is also limited, because when you go to school, we don't only read to pass, but it stretches your mind to start thinking. That's a place of critical thinking, innovativeness. It is birth of that. So you'll find those families lacks educational, they're not able to break the educational cycle. What will happen is the innovativeness part is not there. You go to a family, you'll find no one can take a lead. What wanakoga in a comfort zone. All of them, they are fearful to start of something because they can't risk. And that is a cycle that you need to look whether you're in that cycle in your family. Is it an educational cycle that probably is affecting your family? You need to look into that. Number two, the cycle that you need to look whether it is there. It's what I have called bondage and slavery. Slavery cycle. And the bondage and being a slave or slavery cycle, this way you find a family suffering from a certain area. For example, it might be alcohol. Finds from the first generation, and I know when I mention this, there are people who can be able to say that's where we are. That's from the first generation in your family, a number of them, they suffered from alcohol. There is that bondage, that slavery that you find yourself. It's like a kind of a cycle you find yourself as a family. You try to leave it, there is something pulls you back. You try to leave it, you find yourself. So that is another way you'll find there is a bondage that is holding that family. Other is poverty. These guys, they work. They are working day and night, but they cannot show results. That's a bondage that is a bondage. That is poverty. So I've said when you talk about bondage and slavery bondage cycle, number one, it's about substance abuse, either drugs. You'll get there's a family, you can count like 20 people. Their meeting is not successful until there is alcohol. You'll call their auntie, their uncles. They're always friends when they're drinking. But after that, they start fighting. You can be able to feature it. You can count out of your 30 cousins that 25 of them they're suffering from drugs and substance. That is a bondage that you find. It's a cycle in your family that you need to break forth. The other one I have said is poverty in bondage. Your family, no one. It's hakuna mtu anaweza saidia mwingine. All of you in the same shape. It's like all of you in the same cadre. All of you, if you're earning 200, vibarua. That's how you are. So no one can encourage any. No one can lead to any. You're in the same area. Poverty has gotten, a place in your family. And that is a bondage that you find yourself in. Other bondage you'll find it's about progression. You find your life, you don't progress. You work hard, but there is a stagnation. Where you left your uncle akiwa na kambuzi kamoja akotua hapo hivi. There is that stagnation thing that you find. And that is a cycle that you need to break. You'll get probably your cousin. Walianza tu kabiashara kuzanga makaa 1 gunia. 10 years. They are still selling 1 sack. There is no progression. Hakuna kuisha. They call it the maintenance grace. They are just maintained there. There is no progression. That's a bondage. You'll hear the same story that you had 10 years. You go for a family meeting. What you are talking about is still what you are talking today. There is nothing you can be able to mention. There is no progression. It's like we are in the same roller coaster. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. Still the same it was. Even there is no excitement for having a meeting. You cannot go to a family meeting and feel excited. There is no challenging one another because your family and stagnation, it's like they're in the same place. There is no progression. There is no growth. You are just there. You go to a family meetings and like the 5 minutes, you are done. The meeting is done because there is no one will stand and say, this is what I'm doing with my life. This is what I'm doing with my life. I started a new business. This is a challenge I'm going through. There is no those kind of discussion. There's no those kind of discussion because there is no progression. So if you want to realize, if you want to see there is a certain cycle in your family, see whether there is progression. I have said progression falls under the bondage and slavery, cycle. You are like in a slavery. You can't. You are trying to work hard. You can't progress. And the same thing you'll find in majority of the family. Another cycle that you find yourself, it's what we call the relational cycle. Relational cycle or relationship cycle is whereby that you can never enjoy any fruitful relationship. You find you're a man in your family, you're 40, you have not married, you have another sister who is 38, not married. Like you can be able to see you'll be able to find they get into relationship but they don't amount to any result. And it's not one person. You can be able to count it in your larger family, in your extended family. Like you can be able to count about 10 of your cousins, 10 of your aunties, even your uncles. You'll feel like, and those who are in marriage, it is not still not working. It is shaky. So there is not even an inspiration. That is a relational, cycle. You find your mother was not married and if was married is for a year, then the marriage could not work. Then you are there, you are trying it and it is not working. Probably if you're to get a history of your grandma, it was not working. Your great grandmother, you find they had issues. You can be able to find, you can be able to trace that this has not started with you. It is something that has been in your family. It's something that is being carried through, and that's how you realize now we have a relational bond, and it actually goes beyond to a place whereby that even the social relationship that you get in, either people take advantage of you or you cannot be able to sustain a relationship, even a normal relationship with people, even a normal relationship with people in church and in society. You find you have a challenge in maintaining that relationship. It's not just about the intimate part of it or marriage kind of a relationship. It's even a place where there is a social relationship that you need to maintain. You find you're struggling to maintain these. And that's a moment you realize our family, we have an issue with relational cycle, which we keep ourselves. Today you're in a relationship, tomorrow you're out. Another day probably you're doing well with your friends. Another day you don't know what happened, you just give up and you feel like I'm done. Unaweza mse kuliendaje, mi sijui, nilifeel tu nimechoka aje hivyo tu. You just feel tired for no good reason. You give up very easily, and that's you come to realize you put a pause and be able to see how are things happening. Let me see what wow, I can see guys are here. Thank you so much. Shaluta Nyokabi, thank you for coming. Video iko sawa. Vero, thank you so much. Favored Maureen, thank you. Anne, thank you so much. Wow, thank you, Maureen. I'll never remain a captive of any cycle. Thank you so much. So those are the cycles that you find yourself, and it's good to be able to see them so that you know how to deal with them. And I have said number one is what I have mentioned as we are starting, relational cycles that you find yourself. Then there is bondage and slavery cycles that you find yourself in, and then the other one I talked about is educational cycles. You find yourself, you cannot be able to progress. Every time you want to break, you can't, because you are limited. There are things that you are carrying. Now, because these cycles are there, how are you able to deal with them? Because solution is very important. And walk with me very slowly. If you have a pen you're writing down, you need to make sure that you take this point home. And point number one, how can you be able to break from these cycles? How can you become a remnant in your family? How can you be able to stand? Remember what Jabez said. That is 2 Chronicles in chapter 4. His students said, like, I was birthed out of pain. My mother called me Jabez, which means pain. But he got to a moment and he said, I think I need to take charge of my life. And, he prophesied to himself and said, from today, may the hand of the Lord be upon me. And you know what happened? Then he was changed. May God enlarge me. So, for you to break from this cycle, point number one, you need to sit down and do family evaluation and examination. Let me repeat this. You need to sit down and do family evaluation and family examination. What do I mean? You need to sit down and critically, have a self-examination. Examine your family. Examine your family. Evaluate yourself. Get more information about your family. What was my Guka doing? What was my grandpa doing? What was my great-grandmother doing? What was, my father doing in his age, early age? My mother, what are the things they have struggled, so that you can be able to see, am I carrying the same problem? Am I suffering the same thing? So that if you have to deal with it, you have to make sure you have the right information, because you can't fight what you don't know, and you cannot continue assuming. Even when we talk about prayer, you cannot pray for what you don't know, because you'll be praying amiss. So you need to wake up and sit down. You even need to take maybe a year or two doing a self-evaluation about your family. Ask yourself, why so and so did not go beyond this level? He was probably bright in primary school, he went to secondary school, something came up, and you can be able to trace a number of your family members. That is the same route they have gone through. You'll see, ask yourself, in our family we have 10 cousins, 8 of them are drinking. So how will I deal with it? So that you're able to know, this is a problem we are fighting with. You'll never fight, you never conquer what you don't know. You'll never overcome what you don't know. And you cannot overcome through assumption. You cannot be able to deal with it by assuming it. So you need to arise and do a self-evaluation. So I've said, for you to be able to break the cycle, number one, you need to do, as up as now, tonight, start a journey of evaluating your family. Start seeing what are the things we are dealing with. Kama unajua kuna say there are people who encourage themselves. They find like you break in a relationship today, you try another one. Someone can give a story of in a relationship of 10, and you ask them, what's a problem? Ni kujaribu tu. Si kujaribu, there is something you're dealing with, and for you to deal with it, you have to face it. You have to face that enemy and be able to have recognized this is what we are going through as a family. So tonight, you need to call yourself a meeting, do a self-evaluation, yours and your family. See, what are these things that I'm still carrying from my family? How can I be able to terminate them? You'll never terminate what you don't know. You never deal with what you don't know. I hope I'm clear. So I've said step number 1, self-evaluation and self-examination for your family. That will help you. Number 2, once you realize what you're dealing with, you need to make a change. And that's what I have called a paradigm shift. There must be a shift. There must be a change. And that's a place where you rise and be able to say, now I have realized this is what we are going through, and I'm not going to carry the same. I'm not going to be like my mother. I'm not going to be like my father. I'm not going to be like my father. I'm going to stand and be unique. There must be a paradigm shift of your mind. That is what we need tonight. Guys who are going to arise and start, because out of change of your mind, change of your thinking system, change of how you view things, it will help you to birth another new you. I hope someone is getting this clearly. That the moment you realize what you're fighting with, what you do, the moment you have a paradigm shift, you're getting another energy from within to conquer what to conquer what is outside you. You'll never overcome anything that is outside until you conquer what is within you. Until that moment, you're able to convince yourself, I'll go to university, I will graduate at all costs. I will do that. That's a place where you're having a paradigm shift. You are moving from what your family has been discussing. You are like your family, they don't succeed in business. You call yourself a new meeting and tell yourself, do you know what? I'm going to start a business and I'm going to thrive. I'm going to succeed. That is a paradigm shift that you need. That is the shift, the mental shift that you need. Because as the Bible says, a man thinketh, so he is. It's not your family that will determine who you will. It is not the family that will structure your future. It is you arising and facing your fear and telling yourself, I'm growing above my family. I know no one drove in our family, no one owned a car, but I'm rising above that. The moment you speak it to yourself, if you want something so badly, I'm telling you, you'll do anything that it will cause it. You'll do anything that will make sure you get it. And tonight, guys, we need to have a paradigm shift. Hawezi kuwa unataka kuishi maisha poa alafu nasema unajua si kwetu tunakuaga hivi. Hakuna story za kwetu. A point of reference sio kwetu. A point of reference is I have a mind that God have given me. He has given me power to speak positive things about my life. If you can see it, you can have it. If you can speak it, you can possess it. I feel like I can preach. Guys, we need to arise. We cannot continue living in the same bondage. You cannot continue in the same place kusema unajua kwetu si wote tunakunywaga so wacha tu nikunywa moja. You have to arise and say I will never drink. Whether the legs want to go to a bar, you tell your mind don't command my legs to walk. If it will take everything that is within you to break that cycle, it will take a place of saying that my mind is convinced beyond any reasonable doubt, and the lawyers will say that I will make it in this life. Guys, we cannot have families. They just live like that. Wase walizaliwa in the same place, umekulia the same place, umeenda shule ile mamako, ile primary madhako alienda ndio umeenda, ile seko alienda ndio umeenda kama alibahatika kwenda, ile church ulizaliwa uko duni unaendaga my friend. It's like your phobia. It's like you are addicted to your place. All of you. Atimbaka and then kutoka hapo olewa the next compound. Mnapatanaga na madhe huko, mzae huko, watoi wakicheza, wakigonga boli na ingia kwa mama yako. Sometimes we need to to declare great things in our life. Kama umezaliwa Murang'a kama Jesse, tell God I want to go to Mombasa. At least my mother when she's coming to Mombasa anaenda church Sunday mpaka anaomba salamu. Praise God. Bwana asifiwe. On Sunday naenda kwa kijana yangu Jesse kule Mombasa na munipatie salamu. Huyo madhe ataezi zeeka. Saa madhe anaonaga tu ukilia kila siku juu ya mashida. Ukitoka kibaru umebeba jembe anakuona. We have to refuse it. Someone tonight must be able to say I need a paradigm shift. Unapata familia mzima hakuna msesha ibebwa na ndege na wako tu sawa. Msi lazima akue mad na aseme hiki tunapitanga hapa juu hata mimi siku moja nitaingia. That is the paradigm shift that we need. Guys who are like, no, I cannot settle for anything. I have realized we have a problem and I'm going to deal with it. I hope someone is getting this. Point number 3 and very strong. You need to change the environment. You need to change the environment. My brother, you have to see it so that you can believe it. If you realize this is what is happening in my family, change that environment. Run. Go to another area. See guys doing great things. See people, starting business and succeeding. That's what will change you. You cannot be in the same location and expect to give birth to something new. You cannot, live in the village and expect to have a global mentality. You must be connected to the globe so that you can steer what is within you. And I remember I said somewhere and I told people, the reason why we pray and trust God is going to bless us is because we saw someone with what we are trusting God to give us. You need to move. Kuna wase yeye anasemanga mimi nimetosheka tu hapa. No. You need to move. Your environment will determine what you can give birth. If you take a seed of a maize and you place it on a table, I'm telling you, with its power to give, to grow, it will never grow because the environment is not conducive. You need to create a conducive environment. You need to shift. Unaamka asubuhi unaambia madhe nimeenda. Wapi? Madhe mimi nimeenda. I hope someone is getting this. You have to change the environment. An environment in 3 dimensions. Place, location. There are locational limitations that you need to break. You need to break them. Where if home is let's say Nakuru, tell God I want to live, my life. I want to settle about 5 counties far from here. The moment you get there, you are like, man, those guys will accept you. Those guys will see what they do, and you start driving. So you need to break locational limitations where you arise and move. But I'm coming to that point. Guys, we need to break locational limitations. That hakuna msene nagafa beyond this place. Hakuna. tukachukua ile time. Of course all of us that day tutakuwa tukisoma storia kama tumeenda. You get the reading your story and there is nothing that can excite you. Alizaliwa Githofokoni, akasomea Githofokoni, akaolewa Githofokoni, hospitali Githofokoni, kuzikwa Githofokoni. It's like, man, what kind of a story is that? At least shift, toka hapa hivi, enda Tanzania. By the way, kwa Tanzania you don't need a visa. You just need to wake up in the morning, uende pale Namanga ama Isibania. You just wanakupatia tu, make sure tu uko na yellow fever. Ni hivyo. Enda Tanzania, at least uliako tusamanga ulienda Tanzania ama Uganda. Those are places you don't need a visa. Are we together? At least ukiulizwa na ushaenda, have you ever been outside this country? Yeah, I've been abroad. Where? Tanzania, it's also abroad. We have to break limitational, locational limitation. Ndivyo tuanze ku dream big things. And the reason why I'm talking this, if you can be able to break it, even your kids, they have a foundation to build on. If you can break it tonight, your generation after you, they have a soft and a strong foundation they can stand on and they can take it to the higher grounds. Someone have to say, mimi siwezi ishi hivi na watoi wangu waishi hivi. I have to change. And the moment you will have that shift, it will affect even your children. Change of environment. Change of environment, number 2, is the kind of friends that you move around with. Man, you cannot be struggling financially and you are walking around with another people who are struggling. Hakuna mse atasaidia mwingine. If you know you have a challenge in this area, get another guys who that is their strength. If you know this is where you have a problem, make sure you have 10 guys who are good in it. They will help you. And I always tell people, there is what we acquire, there is what we get through acquiring. If you're not born with it, you can acquire it so that it can help you. You need to change the kind of friends. Their family meetings, una run away. Not because you don't love your brothers, not because you don't love your sister, because you know, if you go to that meeting, if you go to that, function, by the time you are done, any idea utakuwa nayo, itakuwa ishauliwa. There are those guys who are, they are idea killers, they are vision killers, and they are family members. Then you expose yourself now and then. You not progress. There are moments where you separate yourself. I think I have said this again. Remember to this woman in the 2 King chapter 4 and verses 1 to 7. This lady who went to Elisha and said, my husband has died and what can I do? And Elisha asked him, what do you have? Just a little oil in my house. He was told, go borrow jugs and jerrycan and then lock yourself. There's a place of separation. You need to separate yourself 3 years. By the time you are coming out again, your family are wondering, kwani umekuwa wapi? You need to get a place of separating yourself from some people and replace them. Some association you're associating yourself, they are draining you, they are making you worse, and you think you can break those cycles. You can't. And I'm talking this with a lot of energy, with a lot of power, that guys, you need to be in charge of your life. There are family meetings you need to put a pause. You rebuild yourself, you repackage yourself. By the next time you're getting to the same meeting, mpaka salamu zina change. Someone said something. If your families, they don't struggle introducing themselves to you, know that you don't have money. Because when you have money, mpaka wale wadogo, they try to fix themselves how you can recognize them. And what I'm saying, you need to have something in your family, and you must know how to get it. Sometimes there are moments you need to separate yourself. I hope someone is getting this wisdom well. I hope someone is, putting these points down. You need to create a new environment that has new friends. Guys who can speak something new. Guys who can rub shoulders with greatness. You have to walk with great men for you to become great. You have to walk with successful people to become successful. You have to. Tonight, ask yourself, what kind of guys do I have in my circle? Can they help me to break this cycle of my family? Can they be able to help? You need to have guys who they're like changing cars and ask them, how does it happen? There is what we call anointing by association. You start associating yourself with great men and eventually you'll be one of them. You'll be reasoning like them. Environment is very critical. Point number 4, and very important. There is arise and move. Arise and move. Arise and move. This is very important. And I know that Maureen can be able to get this strongly. As the Bible said in 2 King chapter 7, do you know about the 4 guys who had leprosy? And they said, if you stay here, we'll die. If you go, we'll die. But what will happen is we'll move. They will never see our body. We better hide our carcass somewhere. We need guys who are saying, do you know what? I'm arising and I'm moving forward. Arising from your mental, arising from your spirit, arising from the physical you. Wake up. Tonight, guys have to wake up. They have to arise. They have to say, this is not where, this is where I was born, but I'm not going to die here. This is where I have been brought up, but this is not where I'm going to settle. Someone have to be critical and say, I need to arise and move. We need the moving mentality. We need the moving spirit of moving forward. Until Jabez arise and said, God, enlarge my territory. I need to move. I have been here for long, but I need to move. Someone needs to say, I have been in this problem for so long. God, I need to move out of it. I have been in this state for so long. I need to move out of it. And no one will help you to move. I love what the Bible says. Take a step of faith. Take a step of